Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing on this wonderful Thursday morning or afternoon, depending on what part of the world you are in? How is everybody doing today? Tell me how you're doing in the chat pane, just so I can test the audio visual, make sure you can hear me, see me, all of that good stuff. Tell me how my hair looks today. Is anything out of place up there? I think it looks pretty good myself. Looks like a suave. I've been called a lot of names in my life, but I've never been called suave, but I appreciate that. Hey, thank you everybody for joining us today. It's the most glorious day of the week. It's webinar day. It's Friday Eve, during the most glorious time of the year, which is basketball time. My kids are basketball fanatics. I have one playing at Simpson College here his freshman year. So, we'll see if he plays. He's just a little freshman. So we'll see if he plays. Then I have a freshman in high school, and we'll see if he plays as well. So it's a great time of year for me and my wife, a stressful time of year. We're too bought in. I told my wife last night, like, I got to be honest, I'm getting to where I don't even like this time of year. I hear the kids complain about, oh, the coach said this, the coach said that. And I need to be less vested emotionally in it. And I'm not one of those parents that complains to the coach that their kid doesn't get enough playing time. I just want them to win and do good. And of course, as a parent, our kids are the best thing since sliced bread, right? Like every parent thinks. So anyway, it's a great time of year, but also I got to admit, kind of a stressful time of year. I got to admit, I kind of am growing to hate basketball season just because it can bring a lot of drama in my kids' lives, and that I think there's good communication between me and my kids, which is good. So therefore, they project that drama off onto me. But anyway, this is one of my favorite things to do. This is the webinars that we try to do every week here, and this is frankly one of the big differentiators that my IMO has versus our competitors. I started this company 7 years ago. I started the company after a couple of decades in the corporate world. I was an executive of various insurance companies, uh, sales executive largely, but I also took part in a lot of the product development, marketing development, idea development. And so that reflects here in what I do as a marketing organization. But once I left corporate America, I said there are ways to differentiate CG Financial Group as an IMO from our competitors. And I want to thank you for your business because I think the premium that we've gotten reflects that. We went from zero 7 years ago to this year we'll do around $150 million. So for those of you on the phone that have helped contribute to that, I want to thank you for that. By the way, we have over 50 folks on the phone, and who all do we have a couple competitors here that have absolutely no intention of ever doing business with CG Financial Group, but yet I guess I find it flattering that they join our webinars here. Maybe I'll send them an invoice for the free consulting here. But anyway, I digress there. Thank you for your time today. We're going to talk about a lot of fun stuff here. I just had a client meeting last night. It's going to end up being about a $500,000 annuity. And I thought, you know what? This is going to be the case study that we're going to, through the lens of this case study, that's what I'm going to share tomorrow, which is today, on the webinar with the folks as I go over annuity ideas. And then we'll throw out some life ideas, some long-term care ideas. So we're going to talk about the ideas through the lens of, a scenario that I ran yesterday. I have an agent here in Des Moines who has me run his meetings with him. Looks like Steve's not on, but Steve has me run these meetings with him. And by the way, I do this without a commission split. Now, it's easy for him here in Des Moines because I'm able to do it face to face with the clients. But for those of you that are not in Des Moines, I do a lot of Zoom calls. So maybe it's Charlie. I really like that retirement income plan that you created, that you showed us as an example on that one webinar. I have a higher net worth client. Can you help me with this? Create the retirement income plan and discuss how we're able to get that on a Zoom call, discuss how we're able to get that consumer more retirement income on a guaranteed basis than otherwise what his or her stocks and bonds can do. Are you kidding me? Yes, I will do that every day, almost every hour of every day. Why would I allocate such time to do that without a commission split? Because I know it works, because I know there's about a 90% probability that if you and I are on the phone with your client, assuming it's a qualified client, that sale is going to happen. What better use of one's time when there's a 90% probability based off history, a 90% probability that I am eventually going to get paid as a marketing organization. No commission split, but I'll get my IMO override. If there's a 90% probability, which there is based off history here, I'm going to be on those calls with you very happily, assuming that you take me up on that offer. And that's also a value proposition that we have as a marketing organization. Another value proposition, then I'll get past the commercial here, is this, that when you're working with my company, you're not working with a 25-year-old kid that's never even been in front of a client. You're working with a CFP, a CLU, an investment advisor, and all that that's been doing this for a long, long time and understands the products deeply. I helped create some of these products, right? It's funny, my wife says it around tax time. Charlie, how much did we make last year? I said, well, here is the gross. Like, wow, we made that much. I said, well, here is the net. She says, holy crap, what happened between here and here? You know what? When you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to run a business, you know, the marketing expenses, the heck, technology is the number one by far. Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on this stuff. Well, I have very much a vested interest in making sure that you all are making a lot of money. Otherwise, I'm not making any money, but yet I have a big nut, a big expense nut that I have to deal with every month. So it's a little different feel than you calling into one of the mega IMOs and talking to the 25-year-old kid that was just hired by the person that was hired by the person that was hired to answer the phone calls, right? But anyway, let's get into the stuff here. Actually, after a few announcements. So, announcement number one, next week we are discussing maximizing Social Security. You know, you probably saw my little article. I'm starting to do just quick commentary in my newsletters that you received this morning. That's probably how you got on this webinar, right? And as I commented on, isn't it ironic that Social Security is the number one asset, so to speak? Not really an asset, but isn't it ironic that it's their number one source of income for many retirees? But yet, nobody has taught us anything about Social Security. In any of my CFP, CLU, my finance degree, I learned almost nothing about Social Security, right? But yet, the clients that we talk to every day, that's a good chunk of their retirement income. So anyway, I took it upon myself about 5 years ago to really master Social Security, to test that Social Security seminar system, the education, and most importantly, or just as importantly, not just to educate folks on it, but to also make money by educating folks on it. And as a result, there are a lot of advisors that work with me that have made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I will extend that invite to you fine folks as well. And you could start learning Social Security by joining our webinar next week, same place, same time. So that's number one, Social Security webinar. Just an example of it is the actual seminar that I go over with the clients. And it also proves to be a good source of training for you fine folks as well. If you're not real familiar with what does it mean to maximize Social Security, you just take it early and get less of an amount per month for a longer period of time versus taking it late and getting a larger amount for a shorter. That's easy. No, there is so much more to it than that. And you'll see that next week. Number two here, Nationwide has launched their long-term care annuity. I love Global Atlantic's long-term care annuities. I love, or their annuity, singular. I love One America's long-term care annuities. Nationwide is a little different in that they are indemnification versus reimbursement. Plus, everybody recognizes Nationwide there, right? So there is a good proposition in looking at Nationwide. And folks, for the love of Pete, as a friend of mine says, and I don't even know what that means. I don't if you know what that means, tell me. But he always says, for the love of Pete. So for the love of Pete, if you don't do long-term care, do long-term care. But Charlie, that requires underwriting and whole new language. No. And the easiest way, the shortest bridge from where you might be to being a true long-term care pro is the long-term care annuities. It's an easy conversation. You put in 100 grand, it's going to grow quite nicely because it's an annuity. But guess what? That 100 grand triples to $300,000. I need to turn off my fax machine over there. Don't know if you can hear that, but turns into $300,000 from a long-term care pool standpoint. And that's just a little tidbit about how these long-term care annuities work with almost no underwriting, right? So that's number two, nationwide. Number three is, oh, speak of the devil, November is long-term care month. So you have reasons to market long-term care to your clients unapologetically through the messaging that, hey, November's long-term care month. Do you have a Facebook page? A business Facebook page is free. The people with all the money today are not on TikTok. They're not on TikTok. They will eventually have money, that newer group that's on TikTok. Then where are all the folks that have the money? They're on Facebook, and your Facebook page is free. And you have a way of kind of passively, aggressively marketing to your 500 friends, 700 friends, 2,000 friends by having that business Facebook page linked to your personal page. I won't go into the details of how you do that, other than we have a turnkey system. So we have long-term care in a box. You mentioned this probably, or I mentioned this probably about 4 webinars ago. Inside your business builder portal, if you're doing business with CG Financial Group, you know what I'm talking about. Inside your business builder portal, it's a turnkey system. It's emails, it's templates on Facebook posts that you can post, and a million other things out there. So long-term care in a box, leverage that during long-term care month, which is November. We're talking November already. Isn't that crazy? Um, Now, oh, and by the way, here's a piece of information that I'm getting bombarded with asking for my opinion. IUL, and you may hear about this if you have clients with IUL because it's very, very, very public at this point. So, Kyle Busch is in a lawsuit. Kyle Busch, who I guess is a race car driver, right? I don't follow racing. Of course, I've heard of the name Kyle Busch, but it's a pretty prominent, it's a pretty public thing where he has, so he says, been ripped off by about $8.5 million in an indexed universal life deal for him and his family. And by the way, in the lawsuit, or I should say the allegations, uh, it claims a lot around the policy was just never going to perform the way that it was illustrated. I read that in a couple different areas. Nothing wrong with the policy other than the way that it was illustrated versus reality. So there's a little note of caution there on something that again is very, very public. I was again in the corporate world and in one of the boardroom in one of the in the boardroom in one of the product development meetings. I was on the job for maybe about 2 weeks. I won't say what company it was with, but you had the president of the company and you also had the head actuary there, and they were arguing back and forth. And again, I was just 2 weeks into my position here. I didn't know the company, their values, and all that stuff when it comes to pricing products, creating products, integrity to clients. But anyway, the president starts complaining to the head actuary about why the heck is it we've had this product out, this brand new shiny object product out for 6 months. We're doing great from a sales standpoint. So now you're telling us, Mr. Actuary, that we need to drop the caps for our customers. We're going to lose market share. And that's when the actuary looked back at him and said, listen, I told you, I gave you the option 7 months ago, 8 months ago, that when we launch this product, we have two choices. One choice is we can launch the product at a cap that is sustainable, that we will not have to adjust later on. Or B, we could launch the product with a high cap, get a good amount of premium, get a good amount of buzz going throughout the industry, but just know that in a matter of months, those chickens are going to have to come home to roost, and we're going to have to drop the cap on new sales as well as existing clients. Don't you remember that, he says. And the president, well, yeah, I guess, or whatever. And I'm looking back and forth at this conversation saying, I don't think I like that stance that this company has. So that exists. So whether you truly believe that your illustration is going to perform or not, let's just say you need to be on the conservative side because there are things outside of your control, such as the company ripping your clients off when it comes to cap decreases. I'm not saying that all cap decreases are a result of the company ripping clients off, but sometimes it is intentional there. So those are the quick housekeeping items, and we're going to get into some stuff here. I have a couple comments here, and folks, feel free to ask questions as we go. Scott, stay vested in basketball and following the kids. It goes by really fast. I miss it. Enjoy the ride. Oh yeah, we try to hit every single one of their games. My wife just tends to get a little too emotional. Oh man, he missed that shot. Like, who cares? He had a bad game. Whatever. Anyway, so let's get into this case here. I'm going to, through the lens again of our software, I'm going to go over, first of all, a bunch of indexed annuity ideas and kind of my napkin diagrams here. By the way, anybody have any questions so far about anything that I mentioned? Anybody have any recommendations on what you want me to talk about, which is probably already on the agenda, but if not, we'll add it to the agenda. No comments yet. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my screen. Oh yeah, one last housekeeping item is here. A lot of rate decreases. So how do you look at the rate decreases? Well, you go to your trusty CG Financial Group portal here, right? You log into your portal, which is cool. It's 300 videos, articles, all that stuff. But right in the news section, so basically I've already logged in here, right? But you'll enter in your username, your password, and annuity rate announcements for the week of 10/27. You can click on that, and I have all those laid out in a PDF, what the changes are that are forthcoming here. So if you ever want to stay up to date on rate changes, A, open my emails, right? And B, go to the CG Financial Group portal as well as educate yourself with all the videos. 18 minutes on long-term care training right here. That's one video that I just put out there. So there's a lot out there, including the rate changes that are happening. The Federal Reserve announced a 25 basis point decrease yesterday. And although the Fed rate doesn't directly impact what carriers invest in, market forces, carriers tend to react to what the Federal Reserve says. So as a result, I got two rate reduction notifications yesterday from the carriers almost immediately after the Federal Reserve talk. So just know, fire sale, right? If you have some clients on the border when it comes to writing a case on them, you may want to tell them to hurry it up because rates are indeed dropping. And that's where you can find the rate decreases there. All right, so my agent, Steve, comes to me and he says, this is a couple weeks ago, he said, Charlie, I have a client that has, or a prospect, a golfing buddy that has almost $1 million in his 401k. He's 68 years of age and he wants to retire in 2 years. Can we show him possibly how adding an annuity to his portfolio will give him additional, not just additional retirement income than what his stock and bond portfolio can generate, but some on a guaranteed basis? I said, well, heck yes. That's what I do every single day here, right? So this is where, especially for $1 million client, I pull out my trusty software here. And this is Journey Guide. It's not my company. I don't make a penny off Journey Guide, but you do have a big discount if you're working with CG Financial Group for getting this when it comes to getting this software, which is Journey Guide. So long story short, I put together this retirement income plan, and the end result is this. We should be able to get him a projected $360,000 of additional income over his lifetime, which is an additional 12.27% in income here, right? So then how did this conversation go last night from the beginning to the end, where I present the notion of adding an indexed annuity to a guy's portfolio that doesn't frankly believe, he told Steve, my agent, that he doesn't believe in annuities, doesn't want to hear about, and as you know, these are usually the best clients. Oh, I don't even want to hear about annuities. Oh yeah, he's going to have an annuity eventually, because if the math and the science is solid enough, and he's a CFO of a company as well, so he's a chief financial officer. So he's reasonable. He understands math. He understands science. So these are the best type. If I can give them solid math and science, which annuities do, annuities have never been better from a payout standpoint than they are today. I lived through and this is a tidbit that you can take to your clients, or you probably have, if you've been in the industry long enough, your own version of my story here, right? So I was with ING for 12 years. I was on the variable annuity side in 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. Was that a rough time to be in anything securities related? Yeah, that was the financial crisis. We have a question here. That looks like a good question here. So, Anthony, what is your opinion on using fixed indexed universal life for long-term care? We market FIULs for life insurance, but you also mentioned the long-term care aspect as a marketing tool. Um, they can access a portion of the death benefit for long-term care through no-fee riders if they qualify. Do you specifically use long-term care annuities? I know you mentioned Nationwide. What other companies do you use, recommend for long-term care annuities? Yep, I love long-term care annuities. Nationwide is a fabulous long-term care annuity, just out a couple weeks ago. One America, Global Atlantic. Mrs. Client, Global Atlantic, you put in 200 grand, it's got a 6% current 6% interest rate attached to it. If you die, your client's going to get what you put in plus not 6% because there are some internal long-term care fees, but like an annuity, it's going to go to the client. It's going to go to your beneficiary, and it's probably going to be a hell of a lot more than what you put into it. If you want to cash it out, the end of the surrender period, you're probably going to be able to cash out a heck of a lot more than what you put in. And right then, a lot of clients will stop me and say, but why would I not do this? Why would I? I haven't even gotten to the best part. When it comes to long-term care, your $200,000 immediately turns into $600,000. It's the long-term care tripler annuity, as I call it. And Global Atlantic, Nationwide, and again, One America has it. So I love those. Now, there is education that needs to be had when it comes to chronic illness riders with indexed universal life insurance. There are three types of chronic illness riders. One is the free type, right? So that everybody says, oh, Mr. Agent or Mr. Client, I have this free chronic illness rider attached to this cash value focused IU, or it doesn't have to be cash value focused, this free chronic illness rider. Folks, nothing is free. Nothing is free. Here's the way that works. So let's say North American, one of my favorite annuity and life companies. They're on their A game when it comes to product nowadays. They have a rider that says, and this is in the vein of sales ideas, so I'm not going down some crazy bunny hole here. This is an important question and an important educational point here. So for instance, you have $1 million death benefit. Mrs. Client, you can accelerate 24% of that death benefit per year if you cannot do 2 of 6 activities of daily living. Okay, so 100,000 or $1 million death benefit. I have a claim when I'm age 80, for instance. Does that mean that I get cash in pocket of $240,000? No. The death benefit's been reduced by $240,000, but do I get cash in pocket $240,000? No. The insurance company has this mystical present value. I know how it works. It's a present value calculation because instead of the client holding it until death, the insurance carrier is effectively paying out the death benefit early. So they say, oh, well, because you're accessing the death benefit early, even though 240 grand is going to be taken away from what your beneficiaries ultimately get, you may only get $180,000 cash in pocket. So then where did that other $60,000 go? To the insurance carrier. Was it free? No, it was not free. So that's one type of chronic illness rider. A second type, which is not real common, is a lean design where they just reduce the death benefit by a loan amount. And the third type is where there is just an extra charge for the premium, right? So Protective has this design. And heck, this is One America's structure on their it's not chronic illness, it's true long-term care life insurance, but where the client just pays an extra premium, an additional premium, than say the North American policy, for instance. But then when the client has a long-term care event, ultimately, do they get 100% of that death benefit or 100% of what has been reduced from that death benefit? Yeah. So you're either paying on the back end, those discount chronic illness riders, like I talked about at first, or you're paying more premium on the front end. And I like both of those designs as long as it is marketed correctly, especially on that first type that I talked about. Hey, we don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it's kind of a cool cherry on top to be able to access some of your death benefit without having to die. This is life insurance, not just death insurance. And that's something I tell these clients a lot. This is life insurance, not just death insurance. Now, again, when you have an additional premium, um, that death, you can at least point at that death benefit and say, whether you live or whether you die, this $1 million death benefit is going to go to somebody. If you live and take 200 grand out for purposes of long-term care, then your beneficiary is going to get $800,000. Whether you live or die, with certainty, this death benefit amount is what somebody is going to get. We use two companies. One uses discounted method and the other one uses a lean method. Yeah. Well, and if you use One America, which is a very popular long-term care product, obviously, then that's the third design to where you pay an additional higher cost. Protective has an additional cost design that I really like. So folks, keep those questions coming. Those are great questions. So here is the way that I always start the conversation. By the way, this is not a pitch. This is not a pitch on Monte Carlo analysis or even this software. I just want to give you insight to how I converse with clients when it comes to indexed annuities, which we'll get to here in about 5 minutes. But here's how I preface the conversation. Hey, Jim, I removed his last name, but his real name is Jim. So, Jim, you're 68 years of age. You want to retire 2 years from now. And you had put on our fact finder that from a after-tax standpoint, you would be pretty comfortable with $85,000 in after-tax income coming in, right? So here's just where we input what your goal is, how old you are. We also need a certain lifespan that we're going to put in your, and I could tally this back and forth, 85, 92. I like to be aggressive with life expectancies because I want to be conservative with how much you spend each year. And by the way, oftentimes I'll say, if I have your permission to get on a bit of a soapbox here, this is my soapbox conversation. And it is this, Jim. Spend your money. Spend your money. You worked hard for your money. Now spend it. Why do I say that? Because here is what I witness every week. And you find folks out there in the advisor/agent land, tell me if you disagree when I'm done with this. Here's what I witness every week is the people, they go through their working years, they have dreams, goals, desires to when they retire, they have this much money. When they retire, they want to buy a lake home. They want to buy a yacht. They want to have a country club membership. This guy was a big golfer. You want to have a country club membership. Enjoy your retirement. Well, what I see is when people actually hit retirement, even if they hit all of their goals, do your average consumers really do what they had previously planned on doing? Do they fully enjoy their retirement as much as they can? Do they buy that lake home? Do they buy that yacht? Do they join the country club and spend as much money as they originally thought that they were going to do? You tell me, folks, do your clients, or I should say, does the average American actually spend their money as aggressively, for lack of a better term, as what they should? Do they do that? You tell me. Yes, they do. Well, good for you. I don't see that. And I do see a bunch of no's here. No, I don't see it. I don't see it on average that the consumer, nope, nope, no. Yeah, most of you said no. Why is that? Why do they not spend as much of their money as they would like to? And again, this is my conversation. This is my conversation with these consumers, right? They don't spend money the way that they should because of the number one fear that consumers have that are retiring today. And what is that number one fear? That's right. That number one fear is that they get sick. That's another thing. That's a long-term care conversation. And that's always the second response that I get when I ask that question. The first response that I get is, well, the number one fear, Charlie, is that they're going to run out of money. they're going to run out of money in retirement. So therefore, they're overly conservative. They pass away with a huge war chest of money. You know, being the richest person in the cemetery is not a badge of honor. It's not. But they pass away the richest person in the cemetery, right? They didn't enjoy their retirement as much as they could. My wife, her grandparents, they were this way, lived through the Great Depression. Thousands of acres of land in northern Iowa, right? A lot of money there. Did they enjoy retirement? No, they lived through the Great Depression. They had this paranoia. They pass away. That money goes to the kids, not my wife, but that's a different story. Goes to the kids. And what do the kids do with that money? They buy that yacht. They buy that country club membership. They buy that lake home, right? So my point to Jim and these clients is this. So not only are we going to show you how with your $1 million portfolio, you can get more income over your lifetime. You know, Tom Hagna says that people that own annuities are generally happier in retirement. I don't know if that's a nice, and I love Tom Hagna, we're friends. I don't know if that's kind of a cool anecdote or if there is true data around that. But here's why they would enjoy their retirement, because they have permission to spend, because they are not staring down the barrel of running out of money, because this will provide a lifetime guaranteed paycheck, at least on a chunk of your retirement that you can, it's impossible to run out of money, right? So there are behavioral benefits to what I'm going to talk about here, Jim, and there are also math and science benefits to what I'm going to talk about here. So here's your portfolio here at $910,000 in a 401k plan currently. And Jim, you said it's a target date fund. So I would say maybe a 50-50 portfolio is what it is, 50% stocks, 50% bonds. And here's what we know. We know based off your social security system that, or based off your social security statement, that when you retire at age 70, this is going to be your guaranteed source of income, right? And that is social security. 60,000. So he's made a lot of money over his lifetime, right? 60 grand a year in social security is good. He's delaying until age 70. Of course, he's not retiring until age 70. So here is what our system does, is based off of how your portfolio behaves over time, right? Because the system knows this. It's a 50-50 portfolio. It takes 5,000 different simulations based off a 50-50 portfolio. And it says, okay, so in order to not run out of money by the time you're age 92, how much can we layer on top of this on an after-tax basis in expenditures from your portfolio? So you don't run out of money, how much can we layer on top of this as you withdraw from your 401k plan? How much will it reasonably give you per year without you experiencing the number one fear that people have, running out of money? So in essence, Jim, here's what the system does. Number one is we tell you what your number is. A lot of people come to me, $1 million and then a social security statement. What does this mean, Charlie? Does it mean that if I retire next year that I could live off of 200 grand a year? No. Does it mean I can live off 100 grand a year? Probably not. Does it mean I can live off of 50 grand a year? Well, I'm going to tell you what your number is, number one, as you sit right now, as the status quo is right now. But we're going to jack that number up. We're going to make it a lot bigger, to the tune of 400 grand roughly of additional wealth over your lifetime. And we're also going to give you, permission to spend as well. So here's where our guy Jim stands. I'm not going to go into all this detail, but based off of him having a goal of 85,000 per year after tax, you know, he could take from his portfolio, and it looks like he has almost 100% chance that he'll be fine. Almost 100%, right? 94% based off of the Monte Carlo simulations. If you don't know what that is, I can explain it. But it's 5,000 different simulations it's run to give us a probability that he's going to run out of money. But he is pretty likely to live a nice retirement at 85 grand a year. It's not likely he's going to run out of retirement. But Jim, to me, more money is better. To me, more money is better. To me, if we can bump up your $85,000 so you can have a more enjoyable retirement, then let's do that here. So this is where we go into the changes. So here is his current scenario. So he's going to take Social Security at age 70. The green is our plan. So as we start making adjustments, you're going to see this green box increase. Sometimes that green box decreases. If the green box decreases, Is that a good plan for Jim? No, I'm not going to make that recommendation because the math and science here, we're not talking back of the envelope stuff, even though I'm going to show you some napkin diagrams that help him understand it. We're not talking back of the envelope stuff here. We're talking math and science. By the way, your competitor, Edward Jones, heck, even Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Merrill Lynch, they use the same software. Their math and science is Monte Carlo simulations. I take their same math and science and I will show Jim how we can give him more income. All right, so let's us. The parents with funds should buy policies on kids and grandkids with living. But yeah, so we're still on the long-term care thing. Then the kids would get the policies later. So here is what we're going to do, Jim. So here we have mapped out your income over your lifetime, a chunk coming from Social Security, and then your portfolio expenditures, right? Your red line is net after taxes, what your income is going to be over your life. Again, around 85,000 in today's dollars, which 2 years from now, it's around $90,000, right? Oh, and by the way, you have required distributions. Here's an idea on required minimum distributions. Do people that have a lot of money love their RMDs when they hit age 73 or 75 if they're born after 1950? Is it 1950? Or am I having a brain cramp here? Is it after 1960? But 73, 74 for required distributions. Do they love those RMDs if they have a lot of money? No. I don't want to be told by the I don't want to be told by the government what, and it's after 1960. That's when it's 75, the RMDs. I don't want to be told by the government that I have to cash out my money and pay taxes on it. Let's say the Jim was only 60 years of age and he wanted to retire at age 65, for example. Somebody that's retired, and this is a point about minimizing required minimum distributions. When do people want to file for Social Security? So, Jim, let's say that he actually wants to retire at age 65. In the simple mind, some folks have simple minds when it comes to Social Security. Therefore, when are they going to file for Social Security? Just because it's easy, it's mindless, doesn't take any thought. Heck, I'm retiring at 65, so I might as well file for Social Security at 65, right? That's when a lot of people do it. Just whatever date they're retiring, well, that's when they're going to file. So let's say that Jim wanted to do that. If Jim retired at age 65 and started taking his Social Security at 65, this required minimum distribution line would more than likely be very, very, very high. He's required to take required minimum distributions at 73. Well, why, Charlie, if he takes his Social Security early at age 60 or, whatever, on time at 65 or 67, how is it that by delaying Social Security, that's going to make his required minimum distribution less? How is that? Do you guys have any idea what I'm saying here? How is it that by filing for Social Security late, as Jim is doing here, why does that minimize his required minimum distributions? And again, this is not a theoretical conversation. People hate required distributions. Heck, some people convert to Roths just to not have the required minimum distributions, right? Because you are filing for Social Security, that's right, Fred, because you are filing for Social Security late, you are getting more distributions early from your individual retirement account. So you are kind of front loading how much you spend from your IRA in a low tax rate environment. Today, we are in a low tax rate environment. Nobody can argue against that. So it's kind of like the notion of Roth IRA conversions. So when you do the little, I can tally back and forth, file for Social Security at 65, file for Social Security at 70. When they file for Social Security at age 70, most of the time, their number, not only does their number skyrocket by doing that, because you have more Social Security, and also their tax benefits there by doing it that way. So not only by filing for Social Security at 70 does that number often get bigger, which isn't the case with Jim. He's filing at 70, period, right? But that number not only gets bigger, but you see the required minimum distributions shrink down significantly. And this is an important conversation with people with a lot of money that hate RMDs, that maybe also want to talk about Roth IRA conversions or life insurance. taking those required minimum distributions and funding a GUL, for instance, right? Why is that again? Well, by delaying Social Security, you're just spending more of your IRA money up front. And hey, that's okay. Even though you might feel uneasy spending more of that money up front, you're less reliant on your IRA later on because your Social Security is 24 to 30% higher, right? So there are RMD planning strategies with this conversation as well. But for Jim, it's not an issue here. He's filing for Social Security at age 70. Now, here is what I do. What I do, and think of this, just simple math, right? Just simple math. So we know that he has Social Security coming in to the tune of $60,000. To the tune of $60,000. What's the rule of thumb? The old withdrawal rule of thumb. So if he has, let's call it $1 million portfolio. Let's call it $1 million portfolio, which it is almost. So if he's taking from that portfolio, how much, in addition to Social Security, the reasonable rule of thumb, how much in income should he be able to get to withdraw from his portfolio, right? So $1 million, how much income should that generate from, say, a 50-50 portfolio? What's the rule of thumb here, folks? 3%, two and a half. Yeah, the new rules of thumb, right? 4%'s a rule of. Let's get wild and crazy, and let's stick to the 4% rule of thumb. 4% rule of thumb. Well, duh, Charlie. So 4%. So from his $1 million portfolio, that's 40,000 bucks in addition to his Social Security, which is $60,000. Then he should easily be able to get $100,000. No, not after taxes, not inflation adjusted. But so far, you're following me here, right? $40,000. So think about this, and I don't go down this bunny hole with Jim, but you guys will get what I'm about to go into here when I say this. What if I told you guys and gals that by taking $500,000, not $1 million, $500,000 from that 401k, do an in-service non-hardship distribution, and if that $500,000 generates $50,000 in income at his age 70, then it's no magic. It doesn't take a rocket science. So again, only half of his portfolio. The other half is still staying in stocks and bonds, but only half of his portfolio is generating more than what his stocks and bonds, 100% of his stocks and bonds would have generated. So then it's no coincidence, it's no secret, it's no mystery why when I click this button that add $500,000 of annuities, remove $500,000 from the 401k, put it into an annuity, it's no magic that you're going to see this chart skyrocket, right? It's no magic that you're going to see, or no coincidence that you're going to see that his wealth over his lifetime is increased by $400,000. So boom, I programmed it in the system. Nationwide is the top annuity here. So here's what I do. You'll never be out product with me. Annuity Rate Watch, I run the report. It was originally 450, but you'll get the point here. I ran it through Annuity Rate Watch. Which carriers throughout the entire industry has the highest payout for Jim? National Western was the highest. Nationwide, my agent wants A plus companies every time. Got to be A plus, not A minus, not B plus plus. Although I love Equitrust, but not A minus. Charlie, I want an A plus company. Okay, well, number 2 here on the list, which is an A plus company, is Nationwide. So I run that, plug it into the program, build my product in the program, and boom, we are now getting him roughly $360,000 additional wealth over his lifetime. And I'll just sit and look at him and it'll be like, I know what you're saying. How the heck does that happen? How does that happen, right? Well, again, you have this beautiful green line here that is generated by only half of your portfolio, to where before it was 100% of your portfolio. And technically 500 grand plus 400 grand is what's left of his portfolio in the 401k. So naturally he's saying, how the heck are you able to do this? A few things come up, as they did last night. But if I die after year 1, I assume the company keeps everything. The company ripped me off, right? No. Those are the annuities of the old, the life only immediate annuities, for instance. And I simplify it and just say this: whatever the balance is of your 500,000, whatever the balance is, that's what goes to the beneficiary. It's like you're kidding me. So I put in $500,000. I take one payment. That goes down to $450,000, and 450 goes to my beneficiary. Yeah, to oversimplify, right? I said, yeah, to oversimplify it, that's the case. He said, I was always told that these annuities, you lose all control, and if you die, the insurance company keeps your money. So nope, the balance will go to the beneficiary. So this is where we get into my napkin diagrams here, right? We talk about the product. Never did I pull out the company illustration, at least during this initial talk. Never did I pull it out. But this is where he says, what do you mean the balance? I said, that's a great question because, again, I oversimplified that here. So whether you have a whiteboard in your office or you want to do like how I do it on these Zoom conference calls, let's see. I'm going to reshare this because it's a little funky. So here's my little whiteboard diagram here that I'm going to show you. All right, where are all of the controls here? This whiteboard, they switch it up every time and it kind of ticks me off a little bit. All right, so boom, get my little pencil out here, whiteboard, there we go, pencil. All right, so here is how your money is credited. So when we talk about the balance, here's how your money is credited. So this is napkin diagram number one. How is his money credited? He put in 500,000 here, and let's say that the S&P 500 lost 20%, negative 20, which it does. It can lose 20%. Let's say it goes back up by 25%. So literally on the webinars that I do with my agents and clients, this is the software that I use. It's the whiteboard. So if you're in the stock market, you're merely back to where you started, right? Negative 20, positive 25. What did you lose in that first year where the market lost 20%? Well, your $500,000, you didn't lose a penny as a result of the market decline. Now, there is a 1% rider charge, right? That rider on Nationwide, it costs 1% in this scenario, single annuitant. So yeah, you lost 1%, but let's just call it zero in that year. You're not going to lose anything as a result of the market decline. Then when the market goes up that next year, what do you get? Well, you get everything the market goes up to a cap of, Nationwide has a cap of 6.35%. So is that knocking the ball out of the park? No, it's not. It's not designed for that. It's not designed for big accumulation. If you want accumulation, I have 10% cap products. I have 60% participation rate products, right? But to answer your question, Jim, this is how your $500,000 grows. And that's the balance minus your withdrawals that goes to the beneficiaries. And with accumulation sales, because in the annuity space, you have accumulation sales and you have income sales. It's generally two different types. This is the diagram that I use for the accumulation sale. And then, by the way, if the market drops another 25% in that third year, did you lose one penny of your money? You did not. So let me clarify that. Not only do you not lose your principal that you put in, you don't lose a penny of the growth that you had gotten previously here. Okay, so that's how your money grows, Jim. And that's what I meant when I said the balance of your money. However, that $500,000 performs based off that, that's how your money does it. I probably could have cleared the whole screen, but now here is my guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit diagram. So here is what happens. So based off of what we just said, your money is going to look something like this year after year. Your $500,000. Your $500,000, it can't go down. It can only go up. Well, what the insurance company says is this, that when it comes to your income, you actually don't have $500,000 going in. You have a 25% bonus on top of that when it comes to the income value. And what was it? 25% on $500,000, that's $625,000. Yeah. So your income value actually starts at $625,000. And then that income value is guaranteed to increase by 8% every year, by 8% every year. And by the way, you don't have to take income at the end of year two. you can take income later. And as you'll see, the amount that determines your income, it only gets larger here. But here's what's happening, Jim, is at this point in time, when you start taking income, that income value is what your income is determined off of. So they take that value and they apply a pretty good factor. It's not 4%. I don't remember what it is with nationwide for a 70-year-old, but it's like 6% or something like that. So here's what the insurance company says is the calculation at that time, guaranteed to you, is going to generate around $50,000 per year, $50,000 per year into perpetuity here. So what happens to your account value, Jim, as we've talked about, as you start to take distributions? As you start to take distributions, your account value is going to go down. If you were in your 401k plan, if you were taking 500,000 or $50,000 a year out, which on 500 grand, that's a 10% cash flow factor, right? Well, you can rest assured that eventually you're going to hit zero. And you're going to hit zero on this annuity as well. You are going to hit zero if you live long enough on this annuity. But here's the difference between the annuity and your 401k plan. Folks, you tell me, if you're following me, what's the difference between the annuity and the 401k plan when his annuity or 401k value hits zero? What's the difference? And the point to all of this, what is the difference when when his $500,000 hits zero there? What happens to his $50,000 cash flow? That's right, it stays. So the difference here and the point of all this is you still get your 50,000 coming in with that annuity. That is the point to all of this. Taking out 10% cash flow per year effectively, you're probably going to hit zero, but you're still going to be guaranteed that 50. But you're telling, and he said that, but you're telling me my beneficiary won't get anything? They wouldn't have gotten anything with the 401k plan, right? No, they're not going to get anything. But that's a good thing because it's kind of a good thing because you are in the company's pocket at that point in time when that hits zero. Okay, so a couple things here, and feel free to ask questions as I go. Um, and sure enough, to the script, he said, how is that possible? How is it? So you're telling me 4% is this rule of thumb, but you're telling me that he can take out 50,000 on a $500,000 deposit. How is that possible? Said a couple things. Number one is, and many of you have heard me say this, let's take this example. There are five 85-year-old ladies sitting around the table and they're playing bingo. And one looks up and says, this is freaking boring. We've been doing this for 20 years now. Let's play another game. Let's each throw $100 on the table and let's play a game. That $100 on the table, each of us five will do that. Whoever is around a year from now, let's just split the $500 among whoever's around a year from now. Well, I'll tell you, the insurance companies know exactly what percentage of 86-year-olds are still going to be around a year later. And it's roughly this. There are going to be around 86-year-olds around that following year, right? Okay, so you have $500 on the table. How much does each of those four 86-year-olds get? Some quick math here. $125. We didn't even invest it in anything like the insurance carrier does, right? Each of those four get 125. Now, am I saying that you're going to get a 25% return on your cash flow? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just using the example of this thing called mortality credits. The people that pass away are able to fund, at least, to use that language loosely, are able to fund those that live a long period of time. And that is what your 1% rider charge is going to. That's what your 1% rider charge is going to. It's the inverse of life insurance. Isn't that magical? If I pay a $10,000 premium today and get a $2 million life insurance policy, I only put in 10 grand, but I get hit by a beer truck tomorrow. My wife gets 2 million bucks. How's that possible? Seems too good to be true. Is the insurance company going bankrupt? Is this a Ponzi scheme? No, this is this thing called pooling that Fidelity, that Vanguard, that Goldman Sachs, that UBS, whoever, they can't do it. It's insurance companies that do this. Um, and we're about 90% sure he's going to go through it. That the next stage is going after the actual or illustrating to him the actual product illustration, which we didn't want to get into last night. But that's the conversation with Jim there. And then we'll have a couple points here on life insurance. But first, any questions on this? Any questions on this as I look at my notes here and make sure that I covered? Oh, he did say this. And this is a concept that a lot of the anti-annuity rocket scientists on LinkedIn tend to argue with me about, and they lose every time. I call them rocket science. And a lot of them, frankly, are CFPs like me. A lot of them are CFPs like me that love their managed money, as I do. I love managing the millions of dollars that I manage and getting that AUM fee. But they're one dimensional. They don't know what they're talking about when it comes to annuities. Oh, but Charlie, is that $50,000 inflation adjusted? Because the 4% rule of thumb assumed inflation. You don't think I knew that? You don't think that I knew that the Bingham study included inflation adjustments on that original $40,000 in income? Yeah, I knew that. But what have we done for this client? We've given them more income with 50% of their securities portfolio than what they could have from that securities portfolio. So what's my point here? That other $400,000, because remember, he had 900,000 technically. That other $400,000, you see here the blue expenditures later on in life, that is going towards the inflation adjustments on top of the Social Security COLAs, right? That is going towards the inflation adjustments. Then people say that annuities do not have liquidity. Dude, we just freed up 40% of we just freed up $400,000 of your money so that, heck, you can let it rip in the stock market if you want, because the what do they call it? What do the actuaries call it? Because basically the magnitude of loss, the magnitude of loss, it's it's very little now relatively, right? If you lose all of your $400,000, would that suck? Yeah, it would suck if you lost that 400 grand in the stock market. But guess what? You still have $50,000 plus Social Security coming in. So, oh, doesn't include inflation adjustments. We just freed up $400,000, so you can maybe be a little more aggressive with that. Indexed annuities, oh, they don't have liquidity, right? What about stocks and bonds in the year 2009 after the S&P 500 lost 57%? Did people feel very liquid after their portfolios lost 57%? Unfortunately, many of them did cash out, but that's the worst time to cash out. That's the first time, that's a worst time to trigger the liquidity, right? Here, what we've done is heck, I would argue that we've added additional liquidity because that 400,000 bucks there, you can kind of, sort of do what you want with that there, right? Um, so those are a few points on annuities. And this is Journey Guide once again. It's not marketing on the system, but I use this, especially if the clients are the type that want math and science. I use Journey Guide a lot. And you could use eMoney or Money Guide Pro. So here's what I've come across a lot lately. Um, Single premium life. So well, actually, quick point here. You can see that I have so much stuff on my sheet, 3 hours worth, but we only have an hour here. So I'm going back and forth here based off what I think you guys want to hear. Um, let's say that somebody is like, you know what, I have enough money to live off of, and once I hit my required minimum distributions at age 73, so let's say it's $1 million IRA, I hit my required minimum distributions at age 73. um I don't want to take that required distribution. One of the worst things that heirs can inherit is a traditional IRA, especially without the stretch IRA anymore, right? It's the 10-year rule. Roth IRAs are better to inherit than a traditional IRA. So naturally, a lot of these folks maybe have so much money, that they're concerned about the heirs. Oh, do I do a Roth conversion between now and age 73 because I don't want to be forced to take out. You tell me, what would an RMD be at 73 on $1 million portfolio? Let's see how close you guys get this. Then I'm going to make a point about life insurance. A $1 million IRA, roughly what would the required minimum distribution be when they hit age 73? Nobody knows this. Roughly, yeah, 3.8. Yeah, Dora, that's right. By the way, look forward to talking with you, Dora. Yeah, I usually say roughly 4%. I think the factor is 26.5 or something like that. It comes out to, yeah, around 3.8% or $38,000 is what the required distribution would be at age 73. What if we took that required distribution, or if he's before age 73, don't wait until RMD age. What if we took that $38,000, we logged into Business Builder, the CG Financial Group portal, and we said, who is the best GUL life insurance company, permanent coverage? What is the best death benefit that I can find guaranteed to age 121 while utilizing $38,000 per year? To simplify it, per year, yeah, their RMD is going to fluctuate. What is the maximum death benefit I can get on a guaranteed basis, no games, GUL on $38,000 per year? I ran this last week. It was Pacific Life. Pacific Life on their GUL, $900,000 tax-free death benefit by redeploying that required minimum distribution. You know, not doing Roth IRA conversions, or certainly not just letting well, you are letting the IRA sit, you're just taking the RMDs and redeploying that to a life insurance policy. So in year one, for instance, you do that. You have $900,000 life insurance coverage, and you still have almost $1 million over here. Now your estate is a $1.9 million estate, so to speak, with 900,000 of that being tax-free. So you can imagine when you calculate this out into the future at their life expectancy, this legacy max concept, which is what it's called, where you take the RMD to fund life insurance, it works beautifully. And it only works beautifully if you have the right products that give enough of a death benefit per dollar of premium that goes in. And you know what? With CG Financial Group, you have that. You have hundreds and hundreds of companies, and we have the technology, and I have the experience to drill down into this is the best product for this scenario. And folks, we're actually 2 minutes over. I may do a part two of this because I got to about 30% of what I wanted to, and I knew I would. But anyway, fill out the evaluation. Very important. There's an evaluation here at the end. Only like a quarter of the people usually fill out the evaluation. It kind of torques me off a little bit, frankly. But tell me how we did. Tell me if you have any questions, comments, concerns beyond that, and we will be in touch. The evaluation is going to pop up in about 10 seconds. Thank you all for your time.